What's that? What do you got there? That looks pretty.
Well, I'm trying to do a little bit of damage on this bottle. This is a little red wine.
Yeah, but can I say that or
You can say
that
it.
looks like it's good fucking wine.
Well, it is good fucking wine.
You're gonna share that?
Yes.
Straight to the top. We're living this life, not just dreaming it, we're doing it for it. Straight to the top. Working hard every day just to live a better way.
All right, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast out of Indie Music TV, here out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island.
WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, our junior high and high school worst nightmare, the great Tito Santana.
All right, baby, all right. Yes! Yes!
We should explain real quick to the audience at home why the great Tito Santana is our junior high, high school worst nightmare.
Go have at it. Go have
You want
it.
me to have at it?
Have at it.
Well, once upon a time, I was on the bus stop and I was talking pro wrestling, and he comes over and starts making fun of me. What is that crap you're watching? I get him into wrestling. He decides, why do you root for the good guys? He gets me into the bad guys. Okay, fine. Valentine for me, Morocco for you. Fantastic. Well, here comes Pedro Morales. Now, we didn't realize during the 70s how great Pedro was. Pedro returns during the 80s and tortures us by torturing our guys and keeping the Intercontinental belt, yada, yada, yada. We finally get past Pedro. We take a big wrestling, nerdy sigh of relief. And along comes Tito to torture us with Valentine
Yes.
and Morocco.
Yes,
So
he
that's
did.
the story, folks. That's the story. Did I sum that up all right?
You
Mike?
summed it up
Was that
perfectly.
okay?
You
Tito,
summed
how
it up
you doing,
perfectly.
brother? On all things aside, it is awesome to have you. What's this about COVID? Fill the fans in what happened since last time we seen you.
I was teaching from home. I had just, we had, because I'm a middle school teacher, and we had just left the school setting, and we were doing virtual teaching at home. And about the second week at home, I just started feeling really weak and having all kinds of fevers at night. Wake up, about 4 nights in a row, just sweating, and just soaking wet. And then I lost the taste and smell, and ended up losing 20 pounds. I was down for 2 weeks and ended up losing about 20 pounds. And let me tell you, for those of you that don't believe, that you think it's a flu, it's a lot more than a flu. I just hope that you guys don't experience. And how many people have we lost?
Yeah.
It's something to take serious.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Well, the book is it's about my life, and came from Jesse the Body. The title came from him. Don't call me Chico, and Jesse the Body would tell you that I know that people have asked him who would he want to wrestle if he had to wrestle anybody, and he'd always say Tito Santana would be the guy that I would pick, because we used to have great matches. And Jesse, as you guys know, was a great performer. He we'd get in the ring and he'd have the people ready to kill him, and we wouldn't even touch for 10 minutes. And so I would go to arenas and people would holler, "Hey, Chico," and I would kind of get a little pissed off. That's a little disrespect. I felt like they were making fun of me. And one day I was watching, I happened to be wake up in a hotel room watching, and I channel surfing, and I saw our wrestling show, and I see Jesse the Body doing the commentating, and that's the first time that I realized that Jesse was calling me Chico on the air. And I said, that's the reason the fans are calling me Chico. It was not really an insult, They just were picking it up from Jesse, and these were friends that liked Tito Santana, And then I started accepting Chico.
Did you ever have any thoughts of yourself possibly ever dipping your toes back into, Vince's show for a segment or?
No, I when I left, I left it, the sacrifice that we put in being on the road, you know, and not being around and raising my kids and watching them grow up. Now that I'm around and I have grandchildren and you know watching them as babies and I can see everything that I missed. I have had no desire since I left in 1993 to go back on the road. You know those
Right.
guys that you know that are on the road all the time.
What if you were contacted for a guest spot to come in one time, just to be on camera for a particular segment for something?
Oh yeah, I mean I think it's been about 4 or 5 years when they asked me to come do a Raw and introduce Alberto Del Rio, you know.
Nice.
I came in, I did it, you know, but I found that it was so different because they gave me a sheet of paper and I had to memorize the introduction, you know. But when I got into wrestling, it was all, you know, talking from the heart, you know.
Right.
We would just create our own stories.
How
all of a
difficult?
sudden I have a script that I have to read.
How difficult was that?
It was difficult, and you know, I was nervous, and you know, I just rehearsed it and rehearsed it and rehearsed it,
Right.
and I think I did it okay, but
Right.
it's not like it used to be.
Yeah. It's not like you're doing a commercial with the Pharaoh.
Not exactly. Yeah.
You were one of the first guests on Piper's Pit after winning the Intercontinental title. You know, the theme, of course, was Piper attacking your Latino heritage. Do either of you have any trepidation about that segment? You know, clearly you couldn't get away with that stuff in today. You know how sensitive everything is today. You know, any trepidation when you guys were doing that segment?
No, because you know, wrestling was a work, and Vince had already you know kind of exposed the business, you know, by then, you know, and whenever somebody like Roddy Piper would insult you, it would help you get over, you know. So it was just I knew that you know Piper kind of respected me and I respected him, and you know we were just trying to help each other, and you know who was better than Piper, you know, on the mic. I mean,
Right.
the guy was fantastic.
Is he the greatest heel in the history of this business when he was on top of his game?
If not the greatest, I would say he was one of the greatest. I mean, here's a guy that's not as big as I was, and wrestled everybody much bigger than him, and you didn't see him get beat too much, and he wouldn't go down to, you know, you wouldn't knock him down, you know, on the mat, you know, very often, you know. So, and who worked the fans better than Roddy Piper?
Roddy Piper legitimately tough behind the scenes in real life?
I think he was. You know, I heard some stories where, you know, I think he was a boxer, and you know, he was a stand-up guy. You know, I don't think he backed down in real life to, you know, to too many guys.
But in the last 2 weeks, a lot of pro wrestlers are getting called out for sexual harassment.
It was pretty wild back then too. You know, it was pretty wild. But you know, I don't know that that the wrestlers disrespected women. You
Okay.
know?
Okay.
I you know, especially the women wrestlers that were you know traveling with the guys. You know, we had a lot of respect for them. You know, so. I mean,
So you say maybe the old school wrestlers had respect for the industry and had respect for their partners, where it may be different now, where this respect isn't the same.
Or is it just more magnified now because of social media that every last stone becomes unturned? Is it that?
I think that's it. You know, just like everything is going on right now, they catch it on video. You know, you can't talk your way out of it. You know, it's a different world.
Tito Santana, fortunate, smart, or both to avoid the pitfalls that this business obviously carries, whether it's drugs, whether it's women, whether it's whatever it may be. Fortunate, smart, or a combination of both that you were able to steer clear all those years?
Well, I think I was very fortunate, you know, and you know, coming from a divorced family, my parents got divorced, you know, I never wanted my family to go through what I went through as a kid, you know, and coming from a migrant worker working on the fields for $1 an hour, I saw how hard it was to make a buck, and then when I started making some good money, and I'd see some of the guys just blowing money on the road, and I used to think to myself, you know, God, you know, they're spending $100. Well, you have to pay taxes on that $100, so it's going to cost you another $30. You know, and a lot of the guys, as you guys know, a lot of the guys, you know, are hurting. You know, they are having a hard time making ends meet now.
Where do you stand on how Vince should take care of guys then? I mean, should Vince, is it really Vince's responsibility to take care of guys who didn't manage their money correctly like you did, or?
Well, I don't know that it's Vince's responsibility, but, you know, I do know that we were underpaid back then, but I also don't think that no matter how much he would have paid us, some of these guys would have still ended up, you know, broke. You know, I think if he would have paid me more, I think I'd be a little bit better off, you know,
Well,
you know, myself, because I wasn't blowing my money and
Right,
you know, throwing
right.
it away. But
Right.
you know, I don't think, you know, it would have been nice if we would have had a union, you know, for something to fall back on. But
Would you have had the guts if it had been brought to you? Let's do this. Would you have said, okay, fine, I'll take
You know,
your side?
that's a really good question because you're a top player, right? And you're
are.
risking a lot.
You absolutely
If you were to
are.
go, you risking your whole career for the betterment of others, would you have done that?
Yeah,
well, that I don't know if you guys know the story, but you know, right before WrestleMania 1, I believe Jesse the Body had, you know, a lot of the guys
Right.
all fired up about getting a union, and we needed Hulk. You know, and everybody was all gung ho. We were all in. We were all gonna, you know, we were all in. If we could have done it then would have been the only time that I think would have been able to do it. You know, before WrestleMania 1, and all of a sudden, you know, they said, well, Hulk's not in. So without Hulk,
Tito, how's it going so far? All right, we hitting you with some tough questions, or what are we
no,
doing?
no, so far so good.
All
I
right,
mean,
good.
that's why you guys are number one. You know, you have a great show,
Thank
and
you.
you know, you don't beat around the bushes. You come right at me.
I love when you guys put us over, bro. It makes me feel so good.
Wait a minute.
Pat Patterson, Vice President of World Wrestling Federation, Terry Garvin resigned because of the Ring Boy scandal. I think you were around during that time.
Yes, I was.
What do you know
yeah.
about that, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, again, you know, that was not the crew that I was running around with.
Good thing.
You know, and you'd hear a lot of whispers and you know stuff, but obviously, you know, Pat Patterson was gay, and you know,
He was?
he was hanging around with, you know, all the boys loved him. You know, he was a great guy. He was one of the boys. You know, I didn't hang around with Pat, and
Right.
and you know, and maybe because I was such a straight guy that a lot of the that was going on wasn't shared with me. You know.
I mean, you're a good-looking guy. Still a good-looking guy. How you must have been hit on a regular basis, right?
Not by Pat Patterson.
Thoughts on Pat Patterson as a wrestler, just from the nerdy end.
Well, I mean, he was a great worker.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's why. I mean, and he would. You know, they would. I would just hear, and they would joke. Just don't let him go behind you. You know, if you wrestle Pat Patterson, I mean, I think he was one of the key guys that helped Bob Backlund, you know, learn how to work it, you know, a little bit.
You discussed how you wanted to be a heel. What did you want your gimmick to be, and how come you never wore a heel? What did you want to be as a heel? How would Tito Santana have been as a bad guy? I would have loved to have seen that.
Well, I think I would have. I think I would have been kind of like the same style with a little bit of a twist that Mr. Wonderful had.
Okay.
You know, a wrestler, a sneak, but he could keep up with the best, and just a little on the cocky side. You know, irritate the fans by being a little cocky, and I think. Being a Mexican would have been a little easier than even Mr. Wonderful had.
Would you have pushed that angle?
Oh yeah.
You had many successful tag team runs. What was your favorite tag team that you worked with?
Well, without a doubt, Rick Martel, Strike Force, you know, we were a really, really good tag team because both of us could, you know, had the same style. When I was teamed up with Ivan Putski, that was also good, but you know, you had strong guy and the wrestler, you know, and I think I did a good job, you know, contributing to the team what I had to contribute. You know, I accepted the fact that I was the weak link, and he would be the one that come in and save me. You know, and I was a good seller.
Who wasn't the weak link when you worked with Putski, right?
Right, we got over. I wish they would have given us more time, but it wasn't very long.
Right. And then you had, what was it, with the Samoans, correct?
Yeah, the Samoans came in,
Right.
and
Oh,
God,
boy.
I used to go out and watch them wrestle, and you know, and I used to say, man, I knew that we were going to be
We're
working
going
on
to
them,
get
and
killed.
their stuff that they did, you know, in the ring, it looked awful. I mean, you know, those guys looked like killers. You
Yeah.
know?
So when you did finally get into the ring with them, did you find the experience to be as physically hard, or did they have what sometimes is termed in the business as working with them as soft hands? Were they rough?
No, I mean,
So it was easy.
it was so easy that you used to say, "How in the hell can I sell this?" You know, you don't even feel it.
Right.
But when
Not even the headbutts?
Not even the headbutts.
The hair probably was the illusion. Wow.
You know, and they'd hit you on the head with those chops and kick you and you wouldn't feel anything, and then you say, how?
That's great.
It used to be like when I watch them, it looks so awesome and killing, you know, like they're killing their opponents. And I say, I'm going to have to take that, and then when you get in there, you know, how do I sell this? You know, I don't
Right.
feel it. You know,
Well, you
were
did.
exposing the business, you know, but you watch it on film and it
Now-
looks so real.
It looks awesome. How about your memories when you were with Martel working against the High Flyers?
In Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like a little Vern Gagne country here.
yeah, they were over, but we got over too, and the fans wanted us to beat them. You know, I think they were.
Were they pissed?
So they wanted you to beat the High Flyers.
The fans wanted us to beat the High Flyers.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we had. I can't tell you how many hour Broadways we had. You know, our matches.
So you had Broadways and tag team matches.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and you know, the people were really with it. You know, and we finished the angle that we had, and then I went to Atlanta.
Well, let me ask you: did you take Greg seriously, or were you just like, all right, he's the kid, he's the man's son, just gotta get along?
You know, until I got into the ring with him, I didn't have a lot of respect because he didn't have the body. He didn't have. But then
What are you saying? He had tennis legs?
He had tennis legs. When I first got there, and I saw him wrestle against Big John Studd, and John Studd is taking hip tosses from him, and you know.
Wow.
And I used to say to myself,
Wow.
you know, but the guy would make you believe the stuff that he was doing. You know, as wimpy as he looked, you know, his work, his work was you know, next to none.
Vern was an Olympic wrestler.
Right. I mean, so
Greg sold cars.
right.
Would you play Greg sold cars? What, like an AMC Pacer? What
Well,
are
I
you
don't
talking
know. Yeah,
about?
something like that. You Chevy.
Obviously trained by the great Hiro Matsuda, who didn't just train you. He, of course, trained Hulk Hogan. What was he like in person, the great hero, and memories of him?
Well, when I first got into Tampa, and I found out that I was going to be trained by Hiro Matsuda, the first couple of days I just worked out with Barry Orton and his father, Bob Orton's father, senior, I
got you.
guess.
Oh, yeah.
You know, would come in and you know, was helping us out, and he was watching Hiro Matsuda. I didn't know Hiro Matsuda. You know, he was watching us, and Barry, coming from a wrestling family, you know, he was way ahead of me, but he wanted to be a heel, and he was strutting in the ring already, you know, and he was just breaking in himself. So Hiro Matsuda didn't appreciate that. You know, he told me, he says, don't listen to what he's doing. You know, he doesn't even know. He still went behind the ears, and now he's doing high spots and dancing around. And he says, you need to learn. He says, there's 7 takedowns. Learn the takedowns, and you can have a match with anybody. And I'm talking about takedowns, headlock, taking over, arm drag, fireman carry, go behind, hip toss, single leg dive, double leg dive. He said 7 backdrops, work on the 7 takedowns, work on 7 takedowns. And that's all I worked on, 7 takedowns. And the first match that I had was just, I used that, and I was able to get by, in my first match.
How did he teach you how to clock each other? I mean, how do you go about that?
Well, I think I had one of the best punches in the business.
That's why I'm asking you.
And my sons tell me that you couldn't see through your punches.
How much contact would you make? I mean, how much contact are we talking? The art of throwing a professional wrestling punch.
Not much.
Is your fist tight when you're throwing it, or
no,
you loose?
It's loose.
Your fist is loose.
And you almost you throw your fingers in the front. But
interesting. Okay.
That's the hardest thing that I learned. And Greg Gagne told me, don't throw a punch to the head. I didn't throw a punch till I was 5 years in the business.
Really?
He says, start with the stomach. Throw the punches in the stomach. That way, if you land it, you're not going to really hurt somebody. But I'll never forget, I was in a battle royal, and Harley Race grabbed me, and he said, come over here, kid. You're going to learn, tonight you're going to learn how to throw a punch. And he backed me up into the ropes, and he says, okay, throw a punch. And I threw a punch, and I was nervous as hell. Harley Race was a killer.
Yeah.
I was scared to death to hurt him because he could kill you.
Right.
So I threw the punch, and he says, lay it in, pussy. And, so then when I started throwing the punch without being afraid of potatoing somebody, when you laid it in hard, we used to call it a potato. I think once you get over the fear of potatoing somebody, after that night, it changed my like I could throw a punch through a nose with my right or my left, hand.
Let me ask you, did you ever hurt anybody in the ring?
No.
Were you ever hurt?
Well, Burr's the Barber Beefcake, which was never a very good worker.
Okay. He wasn't?
We were in Atlanta. We were in Atlanta with the WWE, and we were working against him in a tag match. I forgot who my partner was, and he ran my head into the apron, and I got like 14 stitches on my forehead. It's just not knowing how to work, how to be light.
Yeah.
It's an art and I would always tell the guys that I work, like Greg was pretty stiff, and I would tell Greg, I said, Greg, you don't have to convince me. I believe you. I know you're tough. I believe you. Convince the fans, and do it without hurting me.
Yeah.
Is there 3 or 4 wrestlers that Tito Santana could say, these were my boys, these were the guys I tried, these are the guys I trust? Are there a few guys you can name that you're very fond of over the years that you traveled with?
Mr. Wonderful was my best friend in the business.
Okay.
I traveled with him.
That's amazing to me. On screen, you're like Mr. Nice Guy Reba, and he's a bastard on screen. Right. That's amazing.
But, he was a heel, I was a baby face, right. and we weren't competing with each other.
Right.
The baby faces, I wasn't going to stab him in the back. He wasn't going to stab me in the back. Mm-hmm. So he was one of them. I used to like to travel with Bill Eadie and Barry Darso.
Okay.
The Bushwhackers.
Traveling with the Bushwhackers, that must have been interesting.
Yeah, I think I hung out with guys that I knew weren't going to
get you in trouble.
Yeah.
How about Brad Armstrong? What did he mean to your career?
It was early in my career. I don't know if it was in '81 when I met him. I think it was in '81, my second time in Atlanta. And talk about a kid who had a lot of talent. But the problem with him, there was a group in Atlanta, Georgia, that were doing all kinds of pills and stuff, and just partying like there was no tomorrow, and you know, he was just beginning to party, and then I left Georgia, and then I heard he got worse and worse and worse, and his father was pretty straight guy. He wasn't doing drugs and stuff, and they were in the same territory, and that's
Right.
why I couldn't understand how. But friends are a big influence. He started hanging around with different guys, and they led him astray.
Undertaker just recently announced his retirement.
Wow.
Did you know that this guy had the goods and he was going to be one of the greatest wrestlers of all time?
Yes,
How?
just the charisma that he had, and a big guy, and he was getting over like $1 million. When I beat him in Barcelona, I think it's the time when they were prepping me to go for be the world champ. Because that's why I found that out later.
Right.
And he could work with the little guys and he could work with the big guys. He had it all. I always say Hulk was like Elvis, to our business.
That's fair.
At the right time, Hulk, was right there. Vince created him. Hulk wasn't the greatest worker, but Vince sure knew how to push him, and got him over, and the fans just ate it up. That's why you guys are number one. You have a great show,
Thank
and
you, man.
you don't beat around the bushes. You come right at me.
I love when you guys put us over, bro.